Welcome to the Business Equation Podcast. This is your host, Nick Bogacz, back for another exciting episode with a great guest. Today we have an inspirational speaker. Keenya Kelly found her voice by writing and speaking about understanding your God-given purpose and living up to your fullest potential. She captures her audience by conveying powerful lessons of overcoming fear, self-doubt, and divorce to create successful six-figure businesses utilizing her gifts and her corporate background. Keenya is the CEO of You Branded, a branding and consulting firm in Redding, California, where she strategically helps business owners going from formulation stage of a business to developing multi-million-dollar brands. She believes that branding is what people say about you when you're not around. So we need to tell them what to say. Welcome, Keenya.
Yay! Thank you so much, Nick. I'm so excited to be here.
One thing that wasn't on the biography when I introduced you was your success that you've had on TikTok and all the successes you've had. So if you would just bring us right in and tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you're all about, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So the funny thing with TikTok, it's happened over the last 3 months. So I haven't had a moment to even update the bio because it's happening all so fast. But I'm here in Redding, California. I actually moved here a year ago from Houston. And my background is in business, marketing, and sales. I spent most of my life helping companies, sell whatever their products and services were and assisting them with making millions of dollars. And one day I just decided that, wait, I think I have something. If they're paying me $40,000, but I'm making them $1 million, I must have the skills to be able to make $1 million. And so once Facebook and Periscope started with their whole live stream thing, I said, well, now is my time. Let's do this. And we've been doing this now for almost 5 years.
Oh, that's fantastic. You can feel your energy already, and I'm sure that's been part of success. Where does your energy come from? You sound like you've got such a positive spirit about you.
Yeah, people always ask me that. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't realize I was that energetic until other people started encountering me on video. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's a thing. But I do take liquid vitamins, so that could be the factor of it. But no, I spent a lot of my time like reading books and CDs and conferences starting at age 18. And now that I'm 39, it's kind of like all that John Maxwell, Robert Kiyosaki stuff is always in me. So I just have this feeling like no matter what's going on, whether it's the coronavirus or whatever, I'm like, there's light. There's always some kind of joy and happiness in life. And I just choose to err on that side versus the other side.
That's great. I think that says a lot. And definitely being an entrepreneur, it's real easy to get caught up in a lot of the negative things that go around, but you have to choose the positive ones. And I think that's what you're saying as well. Take me through what you do for different businesses and how that started. You said it started about 5 years ago. So what do you do for different businesses?
Yeah, so a lot of people come to me because they have this business idea. And most of us are multi-talented. So we have all these different ideas we want to start with. I help the new entrepreneur figure out what is the actual business they should start, helping them to develop a brand, understanding what branding is. And then those businesses that already have some kind of brand, we design websites, logos, and strategically help people to position their businesses online to make even more money. Because if you have a online business only, then you need help. But if you have a retail location and you need to go online, then you need education, help, and all the things.
So what kind of businesses do you help?
It's basically any business whatsoever, because all the product is the same. It's like, well, no, the marketing is the same, but the product is what changes. So if someone has a clothing business and it's physical in, like, let's just say in Redding, but they want to make money online, then it's about teaching them about, okay, how do you, like, what is PayPal? Or what's shipping, or what kind of website do you need? What is e-commerce versus a WordPress site? The value of having a social media manager, of graphic design and running Facebook ads. Because if someone has always run ads in the newspaper or on TV, they may not understand the value of social media. It may just seem like, oh, that's just something my daughter's doing or my granddaughter is doing, but don't realize that 4 billion people log onto platforms every single day. And it's the same thing as TV, but faster.
Could you break down for us the difference in your eyes with your experience, branding and marketing? I always think it's interesting because a lot of people always think that about marketing and branding, they kind of lump them together, but I firmly believe that they're completely different. So would you mind educating our listeners on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I always tell people is that branding is what people say about you when you're not around. Marketing is taking that message to the people, right? So for example, we know that Nike sells athletic wear. Why do we know that? Because Nike created a brand and they told you to just do it. And we're like, well, what does that mean? And they started out with just do it as it pertains to sports. So when you started hearing the name Nike, you automatically think sports, fitness clothing, or things of that nature. When you think of the name Golden State Warriors, you don't think of, oh, this is a warrior out there killing things. You think of the basketball team because they have told you this is what the Golden State Warriors is. And when you hear this name, you automatically think this. You automatically think blue and yellow and Steph Curry, right? Marketing is telling the world, so we've got blue and yellow, Steph Curry is our guy, and we are the Golden State Warriors, like thrusting it out to the world so people can come and engage with the Golden State Warriors, so people can come and buy from Nike. That's marketing, where the message is being created through branding, and then you take the message and you put it out there to the world that generates revenue.
So how do you educate somebody new on how to build a brand and how to create that?
Yeah. So one of the things that I always talk to people about is that there's a book I read called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And one of his number one tips is begin with the end in mind. And so my client, when they come to me, most times they get so annoyed at the first 15 minutes with me, but there's a method to the madness. And I always tell them, we have to start with where you're going first. So before we can build a brand, we have to know, where are you trying to go? So I help them identify what are their 1, 5, 10-year financial goals. Once we know what those financial goals are, then I say, okay, if you're going to make that amount of money in 5 years, what are the products you want to sell? They tell me the products and I go, okay, who are you going to sell these products to? And I have to help them identify their audience. And I go, okay, now we have to design a brand, the fonts, the colors, the messaging, the images to attract that particular person and your target audience to a specific group of products, and then sell them those products so you can make money. So you can't build a brand until you know where you're going as a company, what you're selling, and who you're selling it to, because your fonts, your logo, your messaging, your website, your marketing material should all be designed around that person, that people group that you're trying to draw in to buy from you. Otherwise, you're just creating a brand based off what you like, and what you like doesn't make a difference because your brand is not really about you. It's about the people you're trying to attract to you so that they will buy from you.
How important is it to stay on brand when there's sometimes I think companies will look around and see that something's popular that other companies are doing, or maybe competitors, and they think that they should do it too. But isn't there that question sometimes of, is this really on brand?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a question that a person always has to ask whatever consultant that they're working with. I think many major corporations always have some type of consultant on retainer. They all have an attorney on retainer for sure. But that if they have that consultant on retainer, at least talking to them every 6 months or so, then they're able to tell them, yes, do this, and no, don't do that. That's kind of like what happened with all the racial things that were going on. And some companies are going, no, this is not our message. We don't do that. And they had to consult with people and going, hey, I understand what you're saying, but this is a whole new day that we're in. So you got to do something. You can't do nothing, because they normally would stay on brand, which is right. But sometimes they have to deviate, and sometimes you just don't.
And I think there's a lot of small businesses that maybe don't have consultants. And I think they probably were asking husbands, wives, family, friends, like, hey, is this a time where we do put out a statement or do speak from the heart? And I think we saw a lot of that, but you're definitely right about the big corporations. There's a lot of statements that went out, and a lot of them were quick too, to be fair, that it was a lot of good decisions, I think, right from the start. It seemed like it's easy to talk about brand, but I also say that something as little as uniforms for your employees can also be on brand. Is it true that all those little things matter too?
Yeah, absolutely. Like if a man walks to my front door and he's wearing an entirely brown outfit with a brown hat and this little patch is on him, I know exactly who he is. He's the UPS guy. If somebody walks up, I don't care if they're black, white, Asian, male or female, and they got on this little blue outfit with the stripes going down the side of their pants, I know it's USPS, right? And so it's like all of it makes perfect sense. But the only reason why we know about the brown and the blue is because they have branded themselves that way. And every time somebody walks up, they look the same. So we know.
Yeah, even their vehicles are matching.
Totally.
Right, yeah, matches their uniform.
Mm-hmm.
So when people start to brand, they can obviously use social media to brand. And I think a lot of people always think of Facebook. Then in the last few years, people think of Instagram. You definitely can't discount of YouTube over the last 10 years and even how much has changed in the last year or so, really, too, is how powerful video is. You know, we teased a little bit that you've had success on what a lot of people would say is maybe a kids app. Can you take us through your success from the moment you decided to download TikTok to right now?
Yeah. So actually, I think it was 2018. I'm one of Shalene Johnson's students. And Shalene, I mean, she does a lot of creative marketing things. And she started doing all this, like this baby shark dance. I couldn't figure out why she was doing it or what was happening. But in her Instagram story, she kept talking about this thing called TikTok. And I just couldn't figure out what was going on. 2019, I looked at it again and I was just like, I just don't get it. Finally, what happened was beginning of 2020. And I said, let me just download it and see what is happening. And I posted one video to TikTok. And like within a matter of days, it was at like 10,000, 20,000 views, but I still didn't understand. But what ended up happening was I'm a business owner and I worked in my house for the longest time. And I had 4 young ladies living with me that were going to the local school here in Reading. Well, when the coronavirus hit and we were all hit with the quarantine, they could no longer go to school. They were now in the house. And I'm trying to operate my business, but I can't because they're in the house at the same time. But we're also starting to deal with depression because you're like thinking about like everybody could die and all this stuff that we're thinking about with COVID-19. I was like, I'm not a sad person. What is going on? And I finally one day, I'm a faith girl. I felt like I heard God say, you need to get out of the house, go get an office space, and you need to get on TikTok. I was thinking, God, what do you know about TikTok? This doesn't make any sense to me. But when I got onto the app, I saw happy people. And it was like, how can I give other people happy and joy if I don't feel happy? And so I ended up getting onto the app and I started watching people do little things. And I got on and said, okay, let me just figure this thing out. And I'm just going to dance because I've always been a dancer my whole life. But Instagram and Facebook, they didn't know it. Those platforms don't require me to dance per se, or it didn't make sense for me to be a dancer on those platforms. So I got onto the TikTok app and I started doing little dances here and there. One of my videos went viral, 20,000, 30,000, 100,000. And I started skyrocketing in followers. And I just kept on like doing funny things, inspirational things, talking about divorce, talking about my book, and then dancing here and there. Fast forward now, as of today, 3 months later, we've got 40,000 followers, but they're not kids. They're all between 90% of them are between the ages of 30 and 60 because I've targeted them on the platform.
What was your first video that got the 10,000 views, the first one you posted?
So I went to Olive Garden, and you know how at the end of the meal, they give you those little candies? Like I'm like obsessed with those candies. And so they gave me a handful, and on the way out, I was like, hey, to the hostess, I was like, do you have any more of those candies? And he goes, yeah, he hands me a whole cup full. And so I gave him a hug and then I left. And before I said, wait a minute, this could be a good TikTok video. So I go back inside and I said, hey, what's your name? He said, Bryce. I said, Bryce, I want to do a video on TikTok, but I need you to let me hug you so that it makes sense. And he said, okay. So I run up to him again and I hug him and I posted on TikTok and people were like, this is amazing. That's exactly how I feel about the candies at Olive Garden.
Gotcha. Would have thought, right?
Right. I wouldn't have thought.
You mentioned too about your book that you've been able to let people know about your book while you're on TikTok, and that's the whole thing. A lot of times people get followers on Instagram or Facebook, but they pay for the followers, and they're really not real followers or people that would buy a book if they see it because they like you and they genuinely want to know more of the way that you view things. So can you take us through your book? Can you let us know what the name of the book is, when you wrote it, what it's about? I'm curious about the recent success you've had selling the book as well.
Yeah, so I got my start in network marketing back in 2002, and one of the biggest things that I saw happening in the industry were people were quitting their jobs too soon. One of the phrases that people have always used in network marketing and in general was JOB, stands for job just over broke, and I always used to say that, and I realized that's actually a manipulative statement, and it doesn't make anybody want to join anybody's business when you're talking about their jobs. And so what I also saw was that me and including hundreds of other people in network marketing would quit our jobs too soon. We were making money, but we didn't know how to build a business. We weren't entrepreneurs. We were hustlers. And so I watched people do this over and over and over again. I wanted to write a book about it, but I wasn't quite sure when or how. Once I got into the consulting area, I watched the same thing happen. All these coaches online telling people, have a quit day, quit your job, but not realizing that these people could be making $10,000 a month, but they don't know how to build a sustainable and profitable business. And so out of frustration, I finally said, forget this, I am writing this book. And so the book is called Before You Quit Your Job, A Strategic Guide for Entrepreneurs. And it's 100% about teaching a person who has a job and doesn't know how to think or behave like an entrepreneur. Like, most people are not going to tell you that while they work their job and were building their business, that they also had a side hustle. They're not going to tell you that they had to stock shelves or work with this, doing that to take the money to fund their business. Because, our jobs aren't set up to help us start businesses. They're set up for us to be able to live today. But if we're going to start a business, you need side hustle money in order to fund that particular business. And so I wrote the book because I wanted people to learn how to be successful entrepreneurs, and not just, oh, I want you to read my book. No, because I wanted people to get online, build a business, and then not be homeless in 6 months because they didn't save, they didn't invest correctly, or they quit too soon and their husband and wife is like, what in the world is going on with you? Why would you do that? And so what ended up happening on TikTok was I realized that the same way that I act on Facebook and Instagram, I can't be that way on TikTok, because TikTok is an entertainment app. It's not for information. But I knew that I could do what I call edutainment. I could educate people while entertaining them. And so I ended up, this video is viral now, and it's currently the #1 video on TikTok under self-care for the last 3 weeks, which is crazy. I did a quick 15-second video just talking about, oh, I went through a divorce because my ex-husband, yada, yada, yada. But instead of getting bitter, I wrote a book and I start dancing for real quick for 5 seconds. And the book has just been selling like crazy. And everybody's like, what? You made $400,000 in 18 months. How did you do it? How did you do it? I'm like, well, instead of getting bitter, I focused on my gifts.
That's fantastic. So when did you write the book?
Yeah, I wrote it May of 2019.
I wrote a book myself, and it would be about February 19. So I know how that first year of, hustling the book and trying to push it and promote it and anywhere to talk about it. And I think it does take a little bit of a break to be able to sell it. And it sounds like the TikTok's been a real good platform for you. Being the #1 trending video under self-care for the last 3 weeks has to help the book sales too. So what would you tell anybody that they're thinking about writing a book but they haven't wrote a book yet? I feel like everyone's got at least one good book in them.
Yeah, the #1 thing I would tell a person is ask yourself, why are you writing the book? Because one person wants to write a book because they just want to write a book, which is great. But if your goal is to make money from the book, then you have to write a book that an audience wants to read, right? Otherwise, we're writing this thing and we're trying to sell it, but do people want to read that? Or if they do, finding that audience and then targeting them with that book. So even when I was writing my book, I wrote what I wrote, but then I said, okay, wait a minute. If I was a consumer, what would make me actually give her $20 for this book? And so I had to rewrite and edit it to a place where it was giving them exactly what they wanted, which they wanted to quit their jobs, but they needed strategy to do so. And so if you're want to write one, do it. Don't wait, just do it. But if you want to make money, make sure you write a book and target a group of people so that way you can reach them with what you're trying to, reach them with.
What kind of lessons did you learn from the network marketing? I'm curious. You mentioned 2002, which is a long time ago now. I think there's a lot of great lessons in there. What kind of lessons did you learn from it and the experiences from it?
Yeah, so I'm obsessed with network marketing. I still get a weekly check from one of my companies right now. I feel like network marketing taught me everything that I know about sales. It catapulted me in a way that my consulting business never could. I was 20 years old, and the person forced me to read all these books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all these John Maxwell books. It forced me to learn how to get in front of a room and do a presentation. It gave me a confidence in myself that I never could have had just in college. I did go to college, but college wasn't giving me more of who Keenya Kelly is. Network marketing forced me into it. I feel like it's also the ultimate business school. You know, if instead of you going in there investing $10,000 or $10 million for a franchise, you can invest a couple hundred or a couple $1,000s into a network marketing organization, follow their compensation plan, their products, learn their structure, read the books that they're telling you. And then later on in life, you're still doing the same things you did in network marketing in your own business. Like the guy that recruited me, that was 2002. I called him last year and said, "You are the greatest mentor I've ever had. Will you write the foreword to my book?" You talk about almost 20 years ago. And of course, he knew me better than anybody. And I always give him credit. If it wasn't for him, I would have never got in front of the room. I wouldn't have the courage to do any of what I'm doing today. But he forced me we were at an event and he was supposed to be speaking and teaching. He gets up and says, "Kenya's going to present." I thought I was going to die because I was like, no, we did not practice this at home. What are you doing? But now I have no problem doing it because he pushed me out.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the network marketing gets a bad rap, but I think it's, yeah, totally. And I think a lot of it is, it goes off of the person. Like, it's like anything, you know, there's good people in all businesses, you know, all walks of life. And there's bad people in all walks of life as well. And I think, you know, you get what you put into it. And I think a lot of times with network marketing, especially being young, if you listen and you take instruction well and, you know, read the books that you're presented to read and really buy into it, I think it's a great life experience. That's for sure. And, you know, I think I always admire the people that can make it work, for sure, because I think there's a lot to it. And I guess, like anything, that, you know, there's certain businesses just aren't for certain people. But I think you said exactly what I thought you would, that there was a lot of good experiences in there and really catapulted you to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I love me some network marketing. And I think it's like chapter 2 of my book. I talk about why network marketing is the ultimate side hustle, because you get to, I mean, you have this job, you work 9 to 5, you can take a couple $100s and put it in there. In a year, 2 years, you can turn it into 6 figures or $1 million. And you take that money and do what you've always wanted to do, which is starting a business. I'm like, I don't know any other thing out there that you can start that already has a comp plan, already has the products, and already has the system. Like, there isn't anything else out there. I love it. And there's corrupt people in everything. There's corrupt people in media. There's corrupt people in coaching, consulting. There's corrupt book writers, you know? So it's like, you know, yeah.
Because I think everybody, you know, they always wonder, you know, what do you have me over your house for, whatever it is. But I think, you know, it's just weeding through the garden and finding the shiny gold is really what it comes down to. It's just, you know,
Exactly.
The lessons for that. I think there's a lot of young people out there trying to figure out, you know, maybe they don't have a lot of money. And I think if you find a right mentor in network marketing, it is a very good place for somebody to go, for sure. So what can you say, like, the next 6 months bring for you, the next year? What are you working towards right now? What's your big, huge goal right now?
Yeah, so I'm in Reading. So I just acquired a nice size office space. And so we are in the process of like building like a production studio behind me, because I do a lot of branding and consulting. But I think that once all the quarantines like lift, that we're going to start having way more people coming from locally and all over the country, like having us to do like video shoots and course creation and things like that. So as a business, my biggest goal is to get to $1 million business from a financial standpoint. Of course, I want to get to 1 million followers on TikTok, because the more followers you get, the more potential you have for revenue generation. But I would say, if I had it my way, I would love to have my own television show, and like on Ellen Tube or Oprah Station or something like that, where I get to teach business, marketing, joy, whatever. And of course, it makes me money, but it lets me be more of really who Keenya Kelly is, whether it's book writing, course creation, or whatever. I really want to bring people more joy, more happiness, but I want to pull all the things out of them that they've been afraid to do. And the only way I can do that with more people is getting in front of more people.
You sound like you really got into a point in your life where you want to help people. Like that's your genuine passion at this point. Was it always like that, or was it a point where you felt like, you know, hey, I'm doing a lot of great things myself. I want to be able to show other people the same thing?
I think network marketing started me on that. You know, I think that all of us we're all created to be givers. We're all created to give people things just from a natural standpoint. But when you're in network marketing, it's not about you. Like you can have minimal success by yourself, but you can have massive success with a team. And so I was trained early on how to help my team reach their goals. And so if somebody wanted to make $100,000, if I helped them make 100,000, that meant I was at least making 100,000. And so because of all that, I've developed into this person that knows that I can get everything I want if I help enough people get what they want. And I think that John Maxwell said that too in his book. And so when I look at my life and my purpose and all that, I'm like, okay, I do want to be rich. Don't get it twisted. My big goal is $1 million a month. I want to be married with kids and rich. I don't want to be famous, but I do want to be rich. But how do you become rich? It's because you help other people become wealthy as well. It's so much easier to sustain when there's multiple people that you help versus you doing it yourself. And so because I know that, I'm like, okay, let me just not focus on me. Let's see what I can do to help other people. And I'm ultimately going to get what I want, and everybody's going to be happy. And I'm training people to be givers as well.
The clarity of knowing exactly how much money you want to make too.
Yeah.
I think it's very important, because sometimes when you start to talk to somebody or mentor them and you say, what do you want? And they say, I want to be rich. Well, rich can mean a lot of different things, different to me, different to you. And if you down to, I want to make $1 million a month, like then you have to create something that makes that $1 million a month. And I think, like you're talking about, if you want to have a TV show, sure, you could definitely make the $1 million a month, but you have to know the first part of it before you know how to go at it. Is that what you try and teach people? Same type of concepts as well?
Yeah, because everybody says, I want to be rich or whatever. And I go, that's great. That's a very, very wise thing to want to have. But how are we going to get there? Right. And that was one of the reasons why I invested in consulting early on, because I knew I wanted to be wealthy. I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know how I was going to get there or what my creative genius was. So I like to talk to people about money, but I really also like to go, okay, but what are you really passionate about? What would you do to help people if you had all the money in the world? And what I realized that when I ask that question of a person, sometimes they have no idea. They don't know who they are. And I'm able to take people on a clarity journey of themselves, realizing that, hey, you've got all these amazing gifts. They may not make you Oprah status, but they're going to make you so fulfilled and could end up turning into a lot of money if you want. Like you got somebody like Marie Kondo, the lady that did the folding, like the throw this thing away on Netflix if that doesn't bring you joy. And she became a millionaire overnight because she loved organizing and cleaning. And that brought her so much joy. And as a result of her doing that, she was able to help other people with their own lives and getting organized and things of that nature. So I like to ultimately help people find out why they were created. And if they're going to make money in the process, then we can do it too.
To take our listeners on a clarity journey.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just say somebody wants to start a business. One of the first things I would say is, what's the top 5 reasons people call you? And they were like, what? I'm like, if you got 10 phone calls today, not about gossip, not about anything crazy or political or any of that, but what are the top 10 reasons or top 5 reasons people call? So if somebody calling you for marriage advice, are they calling because you're the best cook on the planet? Or are they calling you because you like have this amazing skincare routine? What are the top 3 reasons? Well, people call me all the time for my skincare. Okay. So are you charging them for advice? No. Are you giving them tips on what they could do? Yes. Could you potentially charge people for giving them skincare advice, consultations, do some kind of course? Could you potentially make your own skincare products, starting with like foods in the refrigerator, foods in your cabinet, and then eventually selling it? When I do that with a person, they go, wait a minute, what you telling me I could make money from the thing that I'm doing for free? And I say, yeah, you can absolutely. You may not be able to make it from your mom, your sister, and your cousin, but if all these people keep calling you about the same thing, you've got something going for yourself. The challenge is believing in yourself enough that you can sell yourself as a product, that you can sell your gifts and your talents as a product. Once a person says, okay, I really have always wanted to have my own skincare line, and I do this and I do this, and I go, okay, now what one product would you start with first? Oh, I would start with the eye cream. Okay. And then we work through that particular product.
I think that's great information for somebody out there wondering. They know they want to have a business, but they have no idea what. I like the advice you gave there. It breaks it down pretty simple when you start thinking about why are people calling you? And that's a great place to start. And then start with one product, right? Like don't start with 5 or 10 products. Start with one.
Because it's so much easier to like, if you realize that everybody's calling you for the same thing, you're like, maybe I do have something. And one of the tasks I give people after that, if they still don't believe it, I say, okay, the people that call you about skincare, I want you to send them a text message and ask them, if you were selling anything, if you were creating something, making money from anything, what would it be? And what most people find out is the people that are calling them for a thing are the same ones that say, you could make money with this thing, but don't charge me though. They all say the same thing.
How important is it? I think a lot of times where people get stuck is they hear people around them telling them that, oh, that wouldn't work or you can't do it. How important is it listening to yourself? To really, to that inner voice, the one that, I always tell my kids, I'm like, look, you can do anything you want to do in this world and don't listen to anybody that tells you can't. Even if it's me at some point, if I tell you that you can't do it, don't listen to me. Because at some point, everyone has that person close to them that says, hey, you can't do that. Can you talk about like where you find that voice for you that creates that passion to be able to go out and do things?
So I definitely would say it's been all the books that I've read over the years. When I started at 20 or 21, it was in network marketing, they had me reading like the 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader by John Maxwell, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Developing a Leader Within You. And so over the last 20 years of reading books, listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks, all that stuff is on the inside of me. And so like it's trained me to think for myself. Right now, when you're first starting out, that's your first book. It's your first thing that you've listened to, but something has to pour in you, because if all you're getting is the news, if all you're getting is social media and the negative people around you, you will always be stuck in whatever box that somebody has placed you in, right? I'll give you a hard example. So I was married previously, and then 9 months into our marriage, I realized that my ex-husband was being unfaithful. I had some choices. I was like, wait a minute, this is brand new. I can stay, and as a Christian, I can pray and fast for my marriage and all the things, and there were some people that were just like, no, girl, you got to stay, you got to pray and fight for your marriage. And I'm praying, and my ex-husband is just not changing. He's just not changing whatsoever. And then finally, I remember laying on the bed one day and I could hear John Maxwell screaming. I could hear Les Brown and Miles Monroe. I could hear them screaming in my ear, you're amazing. You deserve better than this. And I'm going, well, this person's telling me to stay, but all this other stuff is telling me I'm worth better than this. And so I think it was in 90 days, I was gone. In 6 months, it was over. I filed and it was over. And within like 18 months of filing and it being over, I was at $400,000 a year. Because something on the inside of me, all those books and stuff were coming out of me. So it was like, yes, I dealt with depression and the sadness, but I dealt with all that with God and in counseling. But on the work side, I was like, oh, we going for it. And I, boom, just skyrocketed because I had all that stuff talking to me. So it was like, we can only talk to ourselves so much, you know what I mean? Because the world around us will just tell you all types of stuff. But if you're constantly feeding yourself with all this stuff, eventually in those times of crisis or in those times when you need it, that stuff was just going to come out of you, whether you like it or not. I'm telling you, I was laying on the bed crying and I could hear them screaming. And I was like, this is amazing. I did all this over the years. And when it was needed, the volume just automatically turned up.
I really believe there's always a tipping point in anyone's life, especially when you're saying you're reading all these books and taking in all this knowledge and all these experiences. And then, a lot of times it takes a hardship or the, really downturn in your life to realize that you're right on the cusp of a huge tipping point. I think that's important because a lot of times, especially people in their 20s, I always say that's like the hardest part, I think, is the 20s, because people are still trying to figure out who they are, and they went to school, and what do they want to do, and all these different influences that come when you're in your 20s. But I don't know, for me, and it sounds like for you too, when you get to your 30s, you get a little bit more clarity, and then if you use your 20s the right way, you get where there's a tipping point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would definitely say it's definitely how you've used your time, because it's not just time that explodes people or that promotes people. It's what we do inside of that time. Like in my 20s, I spent a lot of that in network marketing growing. So when I needed it in my 30s, it was available, but I also have some of my friends, I love my friends, but they use their 20s for partying, and they're in their 30s going, who am I? What is going on with me? And so it's really about what we do in that time. Now, that doesn't mean somebody that's in their 40s or 50s is a lost cause. No, it just means that today they get to choose to go, okay, I'm going to listen to my first book. I'm going to listen to Rachel Hollis, Girl, Go Wash Your Face, or something like that. I'm going to do something that's going to benefit me. And then they can, move forward. But there is definitely that tipping point where it's like, okay, I've been doing this and doing this. Boom, now I need it, and it's available if it's in you.
I also find that a lot of times that tipping point happens right after either a hardship or right after you're about ready to just give up, and you fight through it. You say, you know what, I could give up. Most people would give up. And you think about it, you weigh it, and then whatever reason, something in you just keeps going. Do you find that true too, that a lot of times things happen after you decide not to give up, when most people would give up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that to be true, because that's what happened with me with divorce. The only one time where I really felt like my life is over with, I'll never do this, I'll never have my own TV show, was the moment when I realized I was actually going to file for divorce. I felt like I had this big scarlet D on my chest. I felt like people were going to think I was a failure. I was a fraud. I felt like I would never love again, nobody would ever marry me, all that stuff. But I had this moment, it was like, I can believe that, or I can believe that I am something. And it was like every day for however long, I had to choose to believe that I could still be something, even in my seemingly failure. But everybody deals with it. Some of it could be a loss of a parent, or a loss of a child, or their spouse dies, or whatever, or end of a career. They lose their job, they get fired, or they get laid off. People feel like, oh, well, this is the end. But at some point, a person has to say, wait. Is this really the end, or is this the end of a thing? And it's when a person is able to ask themselves, is this the end of a thing or end of me, that they get to go, oh, this is the end of a thing, not the rest of my life.
I think a lot of times, what I'm trying to do through this show is just bring people a different perspective, and try and bring them different inspiring people on the show that can talk about their ways. And I think for the people that have been listening for a while now, you can definitely catch it. We have some themes that the people I bring on, they're readers. They've had struggles. Nobody success wasn't given to anybody. And I think just the positivity out of you has just been fantastic. What would you like to leave our listeners with today?
So what would I say? I would probably say, to the person that is considering giving up, don't give up. I don't know what your struggle is. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know what you're currently going through, but it's not the end. Sometimes when the craziest things happen to us in our lives, whether that's a death of someone, because people are dying of COVID-19, or losing their job, or losing their business, that's just the end of one thing. And that's not the end of your life. And so if you're somebody and you're considering, my life is over, or this is the end of me as a business owner, or I'll never be this, I'll never be that you've got to tell yourself something different. And you're going to have to tell yourself something different every single day until you believe it. I don't always believe that I'm going to be a millionaire. I didn't always believe that I could be successful while going through a divorce after a spouse, was unfaithful. But I had to keep talking to myself. And so fast forward today, 6 years later, you can hear the sound of my voice. And so the same thing can happen for you.
Keenya, I really appreciate you being on. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so everything for me is under KeenyaKelly.com, Keenya Kelly, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all the things.
Sounds great. I really appreciate you being on today. This has been Nick Bogacz on the Business Equation Podcast. You can find us at nickbogacz.com for all the past podcasts, and we'll look forward to next week. Thank you so much.